Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. The last time I spoke to today's guest was way back in September 2016, 2 years ago, on episode 107. Jeffrey Smith is the co-founder and CEO of Smule. For those of you that don't recognise the name straight away, it's the leading social network for music, and it's powered by a family of mobile applications that allow people to play and sing songs together across the internet. Now, the last time we spoke, Smule had scaled over 40 million users who were performing and singing around 20 million songs a day, all through their mobile phones. But when I read that they were now rebranding and changing its flagship singing app from Sing to Smule, I wanted to find out more about what my friend Jeff Smith has been up to, and it was a reminder to have a much needed catch up. So I wanted to find out more about how he created a new social experience that never existed before, and also why changing the name from Sing to Smule made sense because it's more about performance collaboration, and also indicating, of course, the brand's flagship focus. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way back to the US so we can speak with Jeff Smith from Smule. So a massive warm welcome back to the show, Jeff. And the last time we spoke was on episode 107 back in 2016. But for anyone listening, hearing your voice for the very first time, can you just tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Well, thanks for having me back on your show. It's a pleasure to be here and to join you. So I'm Jeffrey Smith, co-founder, CEO of Smule. Smule is the leading network allowing people to create and participate building music together through their mobile phones. Unlike a Spotify where you can lean back and listen and stream music, Smule is more like an Instagram where people across our community, in fact 50 million people across the world, are creating songs through their mobile phones, often together. Our flagship product, Smule, allows you to go off across our network, discover your favorite song, discover somebody with whom you'd like to sing, or play, or dance, and then you can, through the product, create a song with that person, and on a typical day, we'll see 20 million songs created on the Smule platform.
For many people listening, Smule is probably one of the biggest music apps that they've not actually heard of. So in addition to its 50 million monthly active users now, Smule has 2 million people who pay $20 a month or $99 a year membership to unlock popular songs. But can you just set the scene a little and tell the listeners a little about what Smule is and the apps that you have out there that people might already be using?
Well, our flagship product was previously named Sing Karaoke, and this is a product that we'd been developing for 5 or 6 years. It was the successor to a product called Glee Karaoke, which we did in conjunction with Fox. And we've recently rebranded and recast the product as Smule, really reflecting our overarching brand and story as a company with a strategy to make it more accessible and make it easier for people to identify what it is we're doing. The Smule product really is about music creation. So many products today on the market allow you to stream or listen to music, and we're one of the few that allows you to participate and create. So the experience of creating a song in Smule, if you launch the Smule application, would entail discovering a song you might like. For me, it's typically The Doors. In fact, I just did a cover of People Are Strange. And once you find the song you like, what's fun about Smule is you could go off and create a solo version, or you could traverse the network and discover a partner with whom you might want to sing. That's the most popular use case. So I could find somebody who's created a version of People Are Strange, for example, and I could join them. And what ends up happening is the two of us are singing the song together, yet in this case, not live, sequentially, and they could create a version, and then I could then join them. And this version that's then created between the two of us is mixed in the cloud and then streamed back down, typically involving video as well. So this is how the Smule product works, and this is how we've really forged the largest social network, allowing people to create and collaborate with musical creation.
Oh, I think it's a fantastic idea, I really do. A great concept and a great choice of song, by the way, as well, Jeffrey, there with People Are Strange. Love that tune. But what I love about what you're doing at Smule is that you're thinking beyond traditional markets such as the US and Europe over here. And as a result, you're enjoying a huge success throughout the whole world. I mean, for example, I think 80% of people recognise Smule in Indonesia, and Smule's biggest opportunities are in China, India, Indonesia and Brazil. Can you tell me more about the secret to your success in these developing countries?
Yeah, well, the fact is, I was speaking at a conference in China a few months ago, and I had received the question, why are so many of your users in Asia, in Latin America? And my response was simply, that's where most people of this world live. We've taken it for granted in the past that a lot of internet companies, software companies have focused on markets in North America and Europe. Yet what we're seeing today is much greater parity in GDP and purchasing power and internet penetration with many of these high-growth countries outside of Europe and North America, including countries like Brazil, Indonesia, and one of the most rapidly growing markets we're seeing today, in fact, is India. And so we have been successful in these markets, and in fact, over 80% of our community of 50 million users are outside of North America, and they're primarily in Asia and in Latin America. I think there's a few reasons for this. One, the obvious, that's where most people live. But second, what we found is that we've been able to build pockets of communities in these regions that have begun to scale, and these communities have then begun to create more and more members of their communities creating music together. We also did a survey where we tried to assess to the extent that somebody in a given region was likely to participate in discovering music or even creating music. And one of the things we found in this study was that while there are a lot of people in the United States who enjoy music, if you contrast that with a country such as Indonesia, they're actually spending almost twice their per capita income on music and entertainment than they are in the United States. And so it turns out there's a higher value for music and entertainment in some of these different regions. And when you combine that with the growing internet and mobile phone penetration of those markets, it turns out to be fairly significant opportunities for businesses like Smule to scale and get critical mass in these regions as they're growing. So, yeah, it's been fun for us to see the expansion of our business across the world. It truly is global. And so perhaps one small anecdote to illustrate this is you'll often see duets that transcend cultures, that transcend borders. And it wouldn't be unusual to see, for example, even a duet of a woman from Indonesia dressed in full hijab singing a song with a Caucasian person from Kentucky out of North America, and they're singing this song together. For example, I noticed a year ago a duet of a Lionel Richie song between these two people. And so it's kind of fun to see not only the development of songs within these regions and music, but it's also fun to see this transcendence, this cross-border connection of people creating music together. And ultimately, that reflects our goal, one of our core goals. And this might sound a little lofty, but nonetheless, it's sincere, is to connect the world through music, to bring this medium of music, which maybe doesn't have the same agenda as language, speech, or even a photograph, but to bring this medium of music and to facilitate these connections of people across cultures, across borders, really to have fun, really to just think about what it might be like to sing a song together and to discover these kind of hidden human traits that are endearing, that do manifest often when we're creating this expressive content and singing songs together. But back to your question, way back when, sorry. Yeah, we're seeing a significant amount of expansion of our business outside of North America and even outside of Europe.
And what I love about your story there is, yes, it's endearing and yes, it's fun, but there really is something quite beautiful about that, isn't there? Bringing the whole world together and singing, it's just fantastic.
It is, and maybe this world needs a little more art.
Yeah.
We have lots of other things in this world, and maybe bringing more art into this world wouldn't be a horrible thing. Soccer, I think, is also one of these things that to the world. Sorry, football. It's maybe something the world could use a little more of, which we saw a nice dose of in this past summer. What a fantastic World Cup! But maybe art is also one of those things that could be important and help bring some people together and help create a greater understanding and appreciation for all of the richness of the diversity of this world.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Now, many people listening will remember the Sing app, and like you said a few moments ago, Sing has now become Smule, and you're giving the platform a complete visual refresh. So can you just talk me behind that rebranding and the reasons behind it?
The fact is we probably should have done it 5 years ago, and I think what we're recognizing is that our market is maturing and that we're starting to see people really want to scale and participate. In fact, we did some market research a year ago that suggested that our market was bigger than even we anticipated. And given that, I think it was important for the company to take all of the scale we've had in our community and our products and our participation and brand it in a way where people could identify where the logical place to go would be if they wanted to participate in creating music. And we did some research where we found that the brand recognition for our different applications was decent, but it was going to be really hard to bring a world community together across a disparate list of brands and products. And so we made the decision to really focus around our platform and to recast our flagship product, Sing, as Smule, to develop that recognition in part for the competitive differentiation, but also just to help stitch this community together, have them learn of the logical place to go. But what we also have done in conjunction with establishing Smule as the flagship brand for our key product is we've begun to open up the experience of that Sing product to allow other forms of musical participation and creation. So, for example, we used to start users in our Sing product with a user flow where we take them straight into singing a song, and that's often fun. Now the updated product, because we have so many people that are creating really fun content, is we'll drop you into an explore experience. So you don't have to go off and create a song. You can go off and see what's going on in the community, discover other people and music and other facets of musical creation. So this coincides with, I think, kind of the expansion of really what we're trying to do as a company to allow all forms of musical creation to coexist on our platform. And that's reflected in the updated naming strategy and the branding strategy that we've launched in the past month. And by the way, it seems to be working. We're seeing that brand recognition grow. And as you mentioned, in a place like Indonesia, we're already seeing the brand recognition, and in this case, it's aided brand recognition. So we're asking users for musical apps what brands they recognize. Smule is above 90%, which is a little astounding. That's up in the same place as a YouTube or an Apple in that region. And so while we haven't made that same level of progress in brand recognition in places like the UK, we see an opportunity with this branding strategy to make similar progress and to establish really Smule as that leading brand of where people want to go to discover and create music together.
And that really comes across as well. I mean, I also read something that you said recently about believing that collaboration via creation will lead to the next era of social networking. Could you just expand on that a little bit? Because I think it was a great point you made.
Yeah, well, when you think about the younger people these days coming through our society, and I'm not one of them, unfortunately, but there's a much greater awareness of the world and of the environment. And there's a much greater awareness and understanding that it's no longer this insular thing where something that I do isn't going to impact the livelihood and the experience of other people, maybe even on the other side of the world. That there's this connection and this codependency that's growing and becoming more significant. And I sense that that's not only true of the approach and the philosophy of these people, call them millennials or other types of characterizations, and that it's sincere, But I think we're seeing that not only in terms of their consciousness and awareness, but in terms of the activities that they're choosing to participate in. And historically, we didn't do a whole lot of social media. If you asked me 20 years ago if I was going to post a picture of my family in swimsuits on a beach on a public network, I would have laughed at you. But I've done it. And they look pretty good. I don't look so good. I got some work to do, but there it is, the photos up there of the family on the beach. And I think that was a pretty interesting and natural step, where now there's this content that's serving as this bridge and this connection between people. It's another form of expression. But perhaps the next stage, and this is something that, yes, we believe, is that it's no longer a singular act of me creating a piece of content and sharing, but rather what's going to happen is people are going to collaborate on how that content comes together and how it looks, how it's shared and manifests. And we're doing that with music. Now, I expect this will be true of other forms of mediums, and will make those mediums even more fun, more exciting, more engaging, because there's something to be said for building something together versus just simply building something myself and creating something myself. And the wonderful thing about music, it's this very natural medium, as we've seen throughout history, of collaboration, of facilitating that participation between people. And so from our very start, 10 years ago, we have pioneered ways in which people can create that music together. And, it turns out it's very endearing. It's very intrinsic to the medium. Yes, sometimes you sing in a shower, but more often than not, you're going to sing with somebody else, or you're going to play a song with somebody else, or you're going to see people doing things together. It's just part of the medium. There's a question of what was the original social network. It was probably not Facebook. It probably was music. But when you think logically of where this might extend over time, we think there's lots of powerful ways of even rethinking of how music is constructed, how the fiber of music comes together to allow that social participation. Even earlier in the cycle, and I don't want to bring in some of the work I did in my PhD here in that conversation. Might be too much, but there's questions even about musical form, musical structure, of how we might rethink and reinvent our approach to how the musical constructs come together, where it's no longer the singular, I compose it, you sing it, but rather there's even a collaborative step that takes place even sooner. And so we think we're really on the front end of rediscovering not just social media, but even art, and how art can come together in this more participatory mindset. But taking this all the way back to the earlier point, we think that more or less is resonating now with the new generations of people across the world, and their growing awareness of how much smaller the world's becoming, and how important it is for us to understand the connections and the dependencies we have on one another in the actions. I don't mean to get too carried away here, but I obviously already have. But yeah, we think the participation in the music and the art is really an important phenomenon, and we see that is possibly being representative of what we're going to see more and more in the future of social media.
Now, a social experience that's driven by performance collaboration just sounds incredibly exciting, and so I'm going to encourage you to get even more carried away here and say, isn't it fair to say that you're leading the way with a forward-thinking approach like this?
We are, and I'm biased, perhaps, but we were the first to discover this phenomena of collaborative social media. We're starting to see it now in some companies with photography and with video, and it's fun. It just makes it so much more exciting, fresh, authentic. But yes, we've pioneered this process in music going back all the way to products in 2008, in 2009 on the internet, and now we're seeing this at scale. And what's interesting about it, though, is that if you think about the case of music, the fact is most of us are fairly shy. We're a little inhibited when it comes to performance of music. If you walked up to a person in the street and handed them a microphone and said, "Hey, sing a song," most of the time they're gonna look at you and probably say, "Well, no thank you. Most of us are more comfortable singing in the shower or singing alone in our car. The exception to that might be Ireland. I went to a wedding there, and it seemed like everyone knew how to sing. You could pass around a guitar, and there they would go. Now, I don't know if it was the Guinness that was helping that or something else, but it sure seemed like that there was a deep set of people who had the musical talent. But aside perhaps from the island of Ireland, most of us are a little shy and a little inhibited when it comes to creating music. Now, however, what if you're not the lead, I give you a partner? Does it make it a little bit easier? And in fact, it does. And by the way, you don't even need to know who the partner is. That's the funny thing about music. It's what we found in our studies and our research is that people are as happy to sing with a stranger as they are with a friend. In fact, in some instances, more likely to sing with a stranger than with a friend because of the inhibition and this fear, which we're trying to convince people that that's a little overrated. You shouldn't worry about it. Just let her rip. But if I give you a partner, and you can sing along, or you could just sing a verse after they've sung a verse, and then join them for a chorus, that it does take a lot of that edge off, and that it reduces the inhibition, and then you're going back almost to this natural state before you were programmed by a couple hundred years of civilization, the past 100 years anyway, teaching you that, oh no, don't do it, it's a little intimidating. We hypothesize, in fact, that before the era of the recording, and this is when Edison was inventing this recording cylinder 130, 40 years ago, that it was actually quite natural to participate in creating songs. In fact, that's what most people did. You didn't have the radio or the record player or the Spotify streaming application. And so maybe through this social participation, we're not really pioneering anything new. Maybe, in fact, we're just bringing music back to its roots. Before, we had these more insular, isolated experiences of how you could consume music. But in any case, I think that this social participation is intrinsic. It's something that people like to do, and it's something that the medium itself was designed to support. And so I think tapping into that is a very natural thing.
I can see you getting me into a whole world of trouble, Jeffrey, because just listening to you there, I don't need too much encouragement, but I'm just going to be singing with strangers all the time now. But in fact, if there's anybody listening, I invite them to download the app and challenge the podcast host, me here, to sing a song with them. There you go. Look what you've just put out into the universe. But,
that would be fantastic.
Smule is approaching its 10th anniversary now, so I feel we must mark that occasion. So what have you learned in those 10 years? How have you actually seen that digital landscape evolve?
It's funny to look back. When you go back 10 years ago and you look at this idea, our vision was exactly the same as it is today, to inspire people to be creative through music, to bring music back to its roots as a participatory medium, and through this medium to connect the world through creation and participation of music. And we've been very consistent about that. In fact, we use that same vision slide in all of our presentations today, just like we did 10 years ago. But I think what's surprising to us, quite candidly, is that it actually worked. At the time, it seemed like this crazy idea. In fact, when I talked to some of the initial investors, and I go back to the presentation I gave them, and at the time I was quite proud of the presentation. When I look back at it now, I'm quite embarrassed. And I couldn't believe that they actually invested in the company. And I think I talked to them, and I said, well, what were you thinking when you saw this presentation and this crazy vision on the cusp of just the introduction of the first iPhone, which was completely unproven at the time? And in fact, at the meeting, one of the partners asked me the question, well, do you realize that Nokia will sell more phones in a week than Apple will in a year? And do you realize that in India, Nokia means mobile phone? So, what are you thinking? What are you thinking of launching on this new Apple platform? And what are you thinking? Do you really believe that you're going to get a lot of people to create music? And he said, I don't believe it. And here we are. And across 150 million in sales, and we have 40, 50 million monthly active users, and we're the largest social network for music by far. It's a little surprising to see that it actually came together, at least this far, into this stage. I don't think it's anything that anybody expected, and I would include myself in that group. I thought it was going to be this fun experiment, and we're going to see how far it went, and we feel good about it because of the mission, but maybe didn't feel like we were going to have a ton of success in converting a lot of people to participating in music creation. And now I have a very different perspective. So now my perspective is that there's been people almost waiting for this opportunity, that it's part of who we are, and that it's a very natural thing to want to participate in not only discovering music, but creating music. So maybe the main thing I've learned is that it's okay to be naive and foolish when you're starting a business. Maybe that's almost a requisite.
Now you're talking my language. I love that line there. Something that completely resonates with me. So I suppose I've got to ask, we're both grown-ups though, I mean, what's your grand vision for the next 10 years? Is there any teasers or any different direction you'd like to take it?
Well, we're going to stay true to our roots of bringing music back to a participatory, expressive medium. And I think our goals over the next 10 years are ambitious. We see an opportunity to have a couple billion people creating music together on our platform. That sounds like a large number, and it represents a significant portion of the world's population. But you fast forward 10 years, most people will have access to internet and mobile phones. And the question is, well, what will they be doing with their time when they're not working, when they're not watching a football game? And it's a good question, but we think that music is one of the most engaging mediums there is, period. In fact, if you look at the studies from Nielsen over here in the States, music even displaces television for a medium of choice of what people like to tune into, actively choosing. In this country, the average American streams more than 30 hours of music a week.
Yeah.
That's a big number. So when you think about how engaging the medium is, and if you think about perhaps the evolution of where media is going, where there's a large trend towards democratizing the creation and the distribution of that content, I expect there's going to be a lot of people participating in this platform. And what we'll be trying to do along the way is in trying to define exactly how people will be doing that. In fact, we're going to try to instead facilitate how people will create and discover music, recognizing that we don't understand all of the different forms of musical creation. And that's how I think we think of ourselves more as a platform that's enabling this community to do incredible things. And that's what's really driven a lot of the growth of our company thus far. It's not necessarily leading, more following, but more enabling. So I don't know if that's coherent or not, but I think our hope is to provide that substrate that's connecting people, but that's enabling people to go off and express things in many different ways and forms across this platform. That's our hope.
Fantastic. And I want to make that a possibility because we do have listeners in 165 countries to this show. So I'll carry through my challenge here. If anyone would like to sing a song with me and they're listening, can you just tell them where they can find you guys online, where they can download the app, and also contact a member of your team if they have any questions?
Sure. So Smule.com, SMULE.com. Go to this domain and you could see lots of examples of people participating, and then from there you'll see links of calls to action of how if you wanted to download an app and go off and create a song or join somebody else's song, that will be defined. You could also go to Google or Apple and just search for Smule, SMULE, so Smile with Smule, and you will find our application and community. As far as a reference for people, you can always write support@smule.com for help, or info@smule.com if you're interested in learning how to collaborate with us. But thanks so much for including us on your show. It was great to be back, and congrats on all of the expansion of what you've been doing. I have a lot of respect for your program and how you've been able to take this to so many different people across the world.
You are a gentleman, my friend. A couple of points that you made a few moments ago there was smile with Smule, and you're also talking about making an impact or wanting to make an impact. And if you've got people singing and smiling and communicating all over the world together, that's a beautiful thing. It really is. And I always say at the end of every episode that technology works best when it brings people together. But you're actually using technology and music to create social experiences through performance, collaboration, and again, bring people together. So I applaud you for what you do, my friend, and a big thank you for coming back on today.
Thank you very much.
It was great catching up today. And whether you call it a pivot, a rebrand, or reinvention, I think there are so many great lessons from today's conversation. Essentially, by shifting the Sing app to become Smule and giving the platform a visual refresh, Smule is betting that collaboration via creation will lead the next era of social networking. And the big takeaway I got from listening to Jeff is that other social networks capture experience, where Smule is the experience. And can you believe it's their 10th anniversary too? But over to you. I would love to hear your comments about today's episode and discussion, but also if you've ever sung or collaborated using Smule, and I know some of you have. I want to know what song you love to belt out. And I'll let you into a little secret. I'm a cowboy hat, glass of JD in hand, while I belt out every rose has its thorn kind of guy. That's my party piece. But what's yours? Email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, or tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. Any of the things I've mentioned, or anything at all. I don't want to shackle your artistic integrity. Give it to me straight, and I promise not to laugh. If you'd like to give Smule a run out and check out some performance collaboration with your podcast host, I'll download the app and I'll sing along with you. How does that sound? Am I going to regret saying this? Only time will tell. Well, a big thank you for listening. I really appreciate it. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.